Hey guys, Mr. X Reacts here. So now that the chapter has dropped, I wanted to talk about the chapter in more depth and quite frankly elaborate on some things as well as speculate on others. Now, this chapter starts off with Fujitora and Akainu talking about the abolition of the Shichibukai system, and Fujitora tells Akainu that since Akainu has never experienced the pain that those Shichibukai bring, and that he wouldn't understand why it was such a good thing for the Chichibukai system to be gotten rid of. Now, there are two things that could be interpreted. That this could be interpreted with. The first one is that Fujitora is talking on behalf of Dressrosa, on behalf of Alabasta, because he was witness to Dressrosa and he heard of Alabasta from Smoker directly. However, the other way this could be interpreted could be that Fujitora is talking from personal experience, and of course, if he's talking from personal experience, it has to correlate with his eyes. Now, Fujitora has mentioned that he gouged out his own eyes because he couldn't bear to see the atrocities of this world. Could this be because of the Shichibukai? Could a Shichibukai member have done something so atrocious, but still be legally backed by the world government, that Fujitora decided that he wouldn't want to see the horrors of this world anymore and rather act, quote unquote, with blind justice? It's a good question to have, but of course it's not answered as is typical with One Piece. Now, from there on, we basically switch to Sengoku and his monologue. Now, there are a lot of interesting things that can be speculative with what Sengoku is saying. Now, the first one, of course, is let's talk about Rocks. Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido were all part of the Rocks pirates. Now, does that mean that when we see that flashback of Whitebeard and he's talking about wanting to have a family, is he on the Rocks pirate ship? Could our member who was going after the gold have been Captain John, perhaps? Questions for a philosopher. Now, of course, Big Mom and Kaido are on the ship too, as well as Shiki. Now, a long time ago, when we were still not sure about the names, whether it's Rocks or Locks, I came up with this theory. I never discussed about it on a video, but I came up with this theory that maybe Locks would actually stand for something. L being Linlin, O being who knows, C being who knows, K being Kaido, and S being Shiki. And O and C obviously were the two letters that I wasn't sure about. I mean, now you could maybe say that the O stands for Ochoku, and the C stands for Captain John, and then you have the ROCKS all filled out. You know, R or L for Linlin, Rinrin, O for Ochoku, C for Captain John with the C, Captain, that's the best I can come up with, K for, of course, Kaido, and then S for either Golden Lion Shiki or Shirohige, which is, of course, Whitebeard's Japanese name. So with that way, you could have each member, it being an acronym rather than just a title. But of course, we later find out that no, Rocks was actually the name of the captain, Rocks de Quebec. But we'll get into that in a bit. Now, Whitebeard being part of Rocks Pirate is very, very interesting, just because it gives us a little bit more. It gives us a little bit more insight of how Whitebeard and Roger could have met on the open sea. It's also fascinating to see, it's also interesting to speculate how strong Rocks would have potentially have been, and why he's had so many ginormous people on his crew, while he himself seems to be rather smallish or normal sized. You know, why would someone have the likes of Whitebeard, Linlin, as well as Kaido on their crew, who are all larger than average, but himself is rather small? Is there more to it, or is that just because, you know, One Piece, some characters are taller, some are not? Now, it was mentioned that it all happened basically in Beehive Island, which is currently where Blackbeard is, but we'll get into that, of course, in more depth than the similarities between him and Blackbeard. Now, Rox was trying to become the king of the world. The king of the world, not the king of pirates. It's very interesting that there is a clear distinction. The king of the world. Now, what does that entail? Ruling the whole entire world, and with a world government, with a world system out there in place right now, it could be that he was trying to take on the world government himself, in a similar vein that Dragon is. I know I've seen some people speculate that maybe Dragon is Rox's child. I've actually got a different theory, which I will elaborate later on. Now, of course, we heard before that Garp was the one who basically stopped Rox, but he did not do it alone. He was helping, or he was alongside the future pirate king, Goldie Roger. It all happened in God Valley, which is very, very interesting that apparently this God Valley has disappeared. Now, I will go into my speculations later on, of course, but right now I just want to kind of talk about the chapter itself. Garp was known as the hero of the Marine, and he looked absolutely badass. That's that. That's that. All right. Now, here is where I want to go into a little bit of speculations. And this involves a certain current pirate. And that certain current pirate is Shanks. Now, Shanks is currently 39 years old. 39. Which means that when the Rox incident happened, he was 1 year old. Now, Sengoku says that, and I quote, Garp and Roger encountered each other on the island and teamed up to defeat the Rox pirates, all in order to protect the Celestial Dragons and their slaves, during what is known as the God Valley incident. Now, here is the thing. What if Mihawk was the Celestial Dragon that they were protecting? What if that is the case? Sorry, not Mihawk. What if Shanks was the Celestial Dragon that they were protecting, that Roger and Garp were fighting to get? Now, Shanks would have been 1 year old, and say Roger and Garp beat Rox, which they do. What happens to Shanks? What if Roger takes in Shanks because the father of Shanks is one of the Gorosei? What if that is the case? I'm of course just theorizing here and speculating, but let me entertain my thoughts. So now we've got Shanks, who was or is a Celestial Dragon, who's 1 year old back then, and who's on Roger's ship. Now he goes through the motion, then we skip a few years here and there, and 15 years later, I believe Roger gets executed. Shanks is seen crying. Of course, maybe for him, Roger was his father figure, and Shanks then pursues his own dreams and ambitions. But the reason why he's able to talk to the Gorosei is because ultimately he is the son of a Gorosei member. He is still a Celestial Dragon, but he's also a pirate. He's not quite the same as Doflamingo, who was a Celestial Dragon and then who gave up that position. But in Shanks' case, he is a Celestial Dragon, but hasn't fully given up that position. He's still one of them, but he's also a pirate. What if you factor all these things in? Would that explain how Shanks has all the pull that he does, where he's able to show up on Marineford and basically stop the war, where he is able to show up to the Gorosei and basically tell them what he wants to say? I feel like it's very interesting to think about. I feel like it's truly interesting to think about and maybe contemplate whether that is reasonable or not. Now, the second thing is, of course, that Blackbeard seems to be looking up to Rox. He seems to be truly looking up to Rox. First of all, his current base is the Pirates Island, Beehive Island, which is where Rox originally formed his group of pirates. The second thing is that his ship is called the Saber of Quebec, for those guys who have played One Piece Treasure Cruise, and for those guys that have seen the SBS, you would know that. The Saber of Quebec. Could that just be a coincidence? Now, a few weeks ago, a member of my Discord actually made the theory that perhaps Blackbeard is Rox. And that when Luffy and Zoro were saying that, he is more than one person, they were referring to Blackbeard being Blackbeard and Rocks. Could there be more to it? Blackbeard is not that old. He could be Rocks' child. He's currently 40, I believe. So 38 years ago, he would have been 2 years old. He could have been Rocks' child. And he's always, which would make a nice narrative, a nice narrative of Garp being the one who took out his father, and then Luffy being the one who's the grandson of the one his father. It would make the narrative sense of Garp, who's Luffy's grandfather, destroying Blackbeard's father, and then later on Luffy destroying Blackbeard's ambitions. They could have a very nice narrative story of that, with of course Shanks being there too, who rivaling or paralleling Roger. And then you'd have Shanks, who was the celestial dragon that was kidnapped, and Garp and Luffy, who is Garp's grandson, versus Blackbeard, who is the son of Rocks. So maybe what we will have is the return of the Rocks pirate. The return of the Rocks pirate. Blackbeard, Kaido, Big Mom. The return of all three of them against Shanks and Luffy. Now that's something I'm sure not many people have thought of. People always thought of Blackbeard as this ultimate behemoth, this guy who will attack Kaido or Big Mom, who will potentially invade Wano. But what if they all teamed up together? And then Shanks, Luffy, and perhaps Sword would have to team up together against these threats. There's certainly something to it. There could certainly be something to it. Now, of course, God Valley, we have to talk about. I personally think it is the island that is revealed when you have the 4 poneglyphs. This island suddenly vanishing. Of course, there is this whole Buster thing, which is supposed to happen on the 10th of October. We'll obviously see what we get from that. But I most certainly think that that this island we will get to. I'm 100% certain that we will get to. I think it's either Raftel or it's either where the 4th poneglyph is located. And I feel like once you get to once you get to God Island, it's gonna show you a path to actually get to Raftel. But of course, I'm just speculating here. It's just a theory after all, not a game theory, but it is a theory nonetheless. Now, last but not least, Rocks. I know some people have been speculating that Dragon might be Rocks' son, I should say, just due to the design. But here's another thing. What about Rockstar? What if Shanks knew who Rockstar's father was and decided to send Rockstar to Whitebeard to essentially show him that Rockstar's bloodline is still alive? But Whitebeard didn't understand the message, didn't see the parallel, and didn't realize that Rockstar might be Rox's son. Another question that may never be answered. Maybe Rockstar is just Rockstar. Maybe he is the son of Rocks. Who knows? Rocks to Quebec. There is multiple mysteries. Now, the last interesting thing is, of course, that Gold Roger's bounty was 5,564,800,000. There has been a long-held theory that Luffy's bounty ultimately will be 5.6 billion, because of course that coincides with Luffy's with the Gomu Gomu no fruit, which Gomu can be spelled as 5 and 6, or it has the numbers 5 and 6 in it, which is of course a theme that we have seen throughout all of One Piece, where Luffy as a child used to wear a t-shirt that said 56, and then later on we saw Katakuri, whose bounty was 1,057,000,000, just highlighting that he was one step ahead of Luffy. But of course, maybe Luffy's ultimate bounty will be 5,060 5 billion and 600 million. Of course, Gold Roger's bounty of 5,564,800,000 is very, very reminiscent of Ace's bounty. Ace, of course, being the son of Gold Roger, who had a bounty of 550 million. Gold Roger's bounty is 5.5 billion. So you could say that maybe it's all on purpose. Of course it would be all on purpose. Gold Roger's bounty being roughly 10 times the amount that. Or should I say, Ace's bounty being 10 times that of his father. A tenth of his father's. Damn, I can't speak. Now, of course, chapter in of itself had a lot of interesting things. The last one was Kozuki Oden, that there might be more to it. And the thing is, every major One Piece arc has had basically a flashback. Every major One Piece arc has had one major flashback, and we haven't had that just yet. So I'm assuming that for Wano Kuni, considering how important he was, we will get a Kozuki Oden flashback, which will answer us several questions and will show us why he was so important that even Shanks, which is the important thing, that even Shanks wanted him or favored him. We knew about Gold Roger and we knew about Whitebeard, but we didn't know about Shanks. And here's something else. He was a commander on Whitebeard's ship. So what if he was a second commander? What if Oden was a second commander, then Gold Roger poached him, as Sengoku said. He poached him like an egg, like a trophy. And then later on, Whitebeard used Roger's son as the second commander. Think about it. Is Oden Kozuki? That is what we know of him. Truly, all there is to him. There has to be more. There is more. So we'll see. We will see. Ultimately, Kozuki Oden is an interesting character. He is one that there are multiple mysteries surrounded. Now, we know that Gold Roger used a sword. It was confirmed this chapter. We saw it in episode 0. But we've seen again that he used a sword. Could it be that maybe the sword that he was using was Enma, and that he then gave it to Oden? Or is the sword that Gold Roger was using Griffin, which he then gave to Shanks? Questions on questions. Theories on theories. Speculations on speculations. But I do feel that the one that is most interesting right now is if Shanks was the Celestial Dragon. That to me sounds like the one that could potentially open the most avenues in the stories. So I feel like that one might be the most realistic one. But hey, that is just my theory, and that's just my speculation, that's just my thoughts on the chapter. Regardless, folks, I'll see you all in the next one, everyone. Until then, have a nice day, peace out, and bye.